Part 2 of the Book of Knowledge, The Keys of Enoch, 40 through 78. They also determine how to program the computer recorder cell with the internal language, and the brain network that species requires for changes through successive evolutionary programs. They reassess how the brain network is processing information according to the original consciousness blueprint of the divine seed. In terms of the human evolution, they determine which parts of the brain can be used for selective adaptation. When this takes place, the mind becomes a receptor of quantum mechanism corpuscles of light. Hence, it becomes its own field of light for the body. Yet the mind still remains in the field of a photonic envelope being directed by the recorder cell, which in turn is a field of light within the field of the divine template and the Aeon Self, the limitless light of the Father. Thus, throughout all of these field levels, there is a highly organized state of cells and tissues that is formed through the crystal lattice of the Shekhinah universe, processing light from the semiconductivity of Gematria template, the inner mathematical synthesis of all biostructures of light. This semiconductor of Gematria is indispensable for the existence of man within all macromolecular branches of light under the control of the recorder cell. Man is fundamentally the vessel of light. In the physical world of creation, the tree of knowledge remains within the body of man as a crystalline galactic tree, connecting every finger and toe cell of his body with the light image process of his spiritual consciousness. Man lives in his garden of consciousness, creation. Let me read that again. Sorry. Man lives in his garden of consciousness, receiving knowledge from the divine template and recorder cell through a super holographic process. The super holograms within man are not dependent on the physical presence of waves, even though they are most readily described by the equations of physical waves. The non-dependence of holography of physical wave production is an important consideration in approaching the original neural holographic process. Here, the light wavelengths recorded in the brain coming from a template are considerably longer than those of physical waves and can be therefore be carriers of small amounts of information, even in the form of spatial interfering holographic patterns from other sources. However, image formation and super holographic descriptions are meaningless for brainwave mechanisms to decipher mind to events unless they are amplified through the quantum mechanistic corpuscles of light. The progressive seeding of divine images takes place through spatial phase relationships, three-dimensional networks of expansion neurons, which work as super holograms emanating from a template. This seeding is necessary as the program changes and is updated. Holographic organization shifts emphasis from axonal impulses to the slow potential microstructure that develops in the postsynaptic networks. In man, given the neural hologram, these steps lead to image constructions of the seeds of light. Therefore, the key tells us the mind is in a field of light, and a field of light within a field of light, and eternal light. And the eternal mind is constantly imprinting functions of the eternal in every form of life. A physical species then serves as one of the membrane types between star systems as a holographic within the mind. This membrane is instant media for the cosmic circuit. Thus, man is as much as in space as space is in man, for he in actuality is a thinking membrane between the luminaries. Our eternal phenomenal world, which we experience waking or dreaming, can represent a strictly determined or orderly phantom phantasmagoria that the higher evolution can use for consciousness through thought transmission. Metatron explained to me that the higher evolution generally programs man to accept the realities of the higher universes by taking man's subjective consciousness bodies out of his physical body during a dream cycle of education through a visual light experience. When man progresses in his spiritual education during a meditative state, his electromagnetic body can be taken into other physical and consciousness worlds of light. There he can receive education beyond his physical world of reference, which enables him to synthesize multidimensional reality. He also gains a working knowledge of how his 5 body vehicles of energy can prepare him for the actual wearing of the Christ body. Metatron explained that when man has fully matured in his spiritual evolution, his physical body and consciousness body can be literally taken off the planet through Merkaba, since the higher spiritual teachings cannot be entirely given on Earth plane due to the lower vibratory levels. Metatron told me, however, that man must distinguish between the lower levels of subjective experience produced by phosphine geometries, as opposed to the divine light directly revealed through Merkaba. These subjective patterns of phosphine geometries, e.g. stars, wheels, bright dot patterns, etc., which rise out of the altered states of consciousness, are still the result of the physical patterns of consciousness connected with the lower vibratory grids. However, the existence of pulsating light geometries within the consciousness of man shows that he is already part of a divine circuit of information which flows from light body to light body. The phosphine geometries are simply the internal readout. Accordingly, the Brotherhood of Light uses some of the phosphine geometries to code man's consciousness into an inner language of light. If man would look at this inner space, he would see how the Brotherhood could tap into his inner space to code information, just as man can tap into the mind space of the masters. Enoch said that there are 5 bodies of illumination connected to our bodies, our physical bodies, which are the keys and the mechanisms, adaptations of the light fields that are necessary for the seeding process of the divine Hokmah wisdom into the physical world. Hokmah requires a complex network for its superior cataloging. Though this superior cataloging, the divine template acts upon the neuroelectromagnetic events. These events are consciously directed, mentally quantumized, and physiologically categorized through color events. In order for man to truly use Hokmah, he must have 5 bodies active so that they can work directly with the pulsating templates of the recorder cell, the divine template, and the councils of the Elohim on the higher levels of the reality. It is through this collective mastery that teaching is given and received. The mastery is based upon man's ability to work simultaneously with information from many worlds of the lower heavens. He must master this stage before he can truly understand soul progression. One of the 5 bodies can work directly with the template of the many worlds. This is the Ika body, consciousness, which can leave behind the three-dimensional consciousness time frame and experience other time zones to see and work with the Masters of Light who protect and educate the Eka body through an activated light network. Moreover, this network of light is used to activate additional plus and minus bodies of consciousness light that are necessary to leave behind the bipolarity of the common universe to experience the Eka multidimensional universe. Consequently, in order to work with other worlds of multiple relativity, there has been a complex network that can serve these worlds as well as masters who are capable of fusing their consciousness simultaneously in all worlds of multiple relativity. These masters work in a trinitized form in our Sun universe. This universe was announced and clearly demonstrates by Jesus on the Mount of Transfiguration when he appeared with Moses on one side and Elijah on the other. Trinitization is given to all ascended masters who work directly with the consciousness minds of the luminaries and have their Christ bodies united with the physical bodies of the masters who are or have been on the earth plane. Jesus' expression of where 2, 3, or more are gathered in my name, I am in the midst of them, is a true expression of this sacred mystery. Here, a certain sequence of vehicles is necessary to manifest the power of a given divine name, which in turn manifests the power of the divine life. In education of the soul, the consciousness activation of the many Eka vehicles demonstrates to man how there is a multidimensional relationship between body vehicles that can also interpretate by the multidimensional body vehicles of Masters of Light. At this time, there are many souls who have completed their self-meta programs and yet choose to remain and become future leaders and teachers upon this planet. There are those who while still living in this physical form are already working with the quantum of life from the throne. This is now taking place on a greater scale than in previous ages, because in previous ages it was necessary that the operation of the many Eka bodies be limited from the higher correspondences of the Masters of Light, so that the higher vehicles would not be able to contaminate until the Masters had sufficiently incarnated into the human plane to raise its vibratory to work with the higher worlds of light. With the dawning of the light on every level of the physical creation, it is possible through the opening of the gates of the higher evolution to receive the full manifestation of the Eka bodies, which lead to the accession of the Christ body. You are now invited to prepare for the greater peace of the Father who welcomes you with your brothers and sisters. Hold firm in devotion and give hope to others that they might attune their consciousness patterns in resonance with the eternal vibration of the Holy Spirit Shekhinah.